Rivalries. I love them, you love them. It's one of the many great things that make college football. But in this video, we are going to talk about the possible incoming new college football rivalries. Many of you loved the last rivalry video I made, so this is like a part 2 if you will. If you haven't watched it, go ahead, check it out. But in this video, we will be going in the complete opposite direction. This comment is one of the main reasons for this video. So shout out to this guy. And with the massive conference expansions, there's no better time than this to talk about the possible new rivalries between new conference foes. Let's get started in the heart of college football, the Southeastern Conference. The same conference that tends to expand more west every so often, despite the name. With Texas and Oklahoma joining, it brings in some great potential since Texas and OU were neighbors to other SEC schools. And also we know rivalries are able to work within these regions since we have rivalries like Texas, Texas A&M, Texas and Arkansas. Some could argue Missouri and Oklahoma, but I would have to disagree on that. But you could put these two in a potential new rivalry category. The two campuses are under 400 miles away and they are both bordering states. Both Oklahoma and Missouri represent states that are arguably the two states in the SEC that are not so-called southern states. These two are both more Midwest, if you will. They just aren't southern, or as southern as the other SEC schools. Could these similarities between the two schools fire up new bad blood in the SEC? Maybe. Since they were both in the same conference before the SEC expansions, it's definitely a possibility. Staying with Oklahoma, mentioned in the last rivalry video, Oklahoma and LSU will be playing on Thanksgiving week, a week reserved for rivalry games. Even though Louisiana and Oklahoma don't border each other, it could spark a huge rivalry for college football. These two schools are easily some of the biggest brands of the sport. You could show someone who doesn't watch sports these team logos and they would at least tell you that they've seen these logos before or they recognize them. Both programs have big fan bases and rich history. Putting OU and LSU together on Turkey Week really provides a rivalry spark. Even though the two schools have only played each other a few times, I wouldn't be surprised to see this matchup in future rivalry discussions. And what about Oklahoma and Arkansas? Before the 2024 SEC expansion, the closest campus to the University of Arkansas was Missouri's, which clocked in just below a 5-hour drive. But since OU joined, Arkansas's closest SEC campus is now Norman, Oklahoma, which is only a 3.5-hour drive between the schools. This has great possible chances of a rivalry in my personal opinion. I may be a little biased, but I was born in Fort Smith, a town in Arkansas right on the OU-Arkansas border. Half of my family are Oklahoma fans and half are Hogs. That area around there has always had beef surrounding Arkansas and OU despite barely playing each other. Sadly, these two schools won't be matched up this upcoming season or in the 2025 season. I am really hoping for the 2026 Hogs and Sooners matchup. I think it would be very fun to watch. Moving on to Texas. They already have bad blood with the Aggies and the Razorbacks, so do you see any possibility of a third conference rival? Possibly. Texas and LSU maybe. I feel like that could be the most reasonable out of any other school. Louisiana and Texas are rivals and not just football. These two schools and fan bases would love this matchup. Both are historic southern states that love their food and their football. Shifting our focus, let's go back to the comment that inspired this all. The Big Ten will have a hard time creating new rivalries, just like the ACC, since the expansion includes Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. These teams are on the other side of the nation compared to the so-called original teams in the conference. But I wouldn't say it's impossible to form a new rivalry. USC and Michigan State. Funny enough, before I read this comment, I heard on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, of talks about Michigan State and USC becoming potential rivals, mainly because of the mascots of the schools, with USC having the Trojans and Michigan State the Spartans. The two mascots are obviously huge in history. I'm no history teacher, but Trojans versus Spartans seem pretty cool to me. The only reason why I believe this could become a potential rivalry is because I've heard numerous of rumors of this happening. But given that it's only because of the mascot names, I highly doubt it, especially since the two schools are so far away from each other. It just doesn't make sense, but I could see it happening still. I honestly doubt the ACC this year will birth any new rivalries. Adding California and Stanford, I just don't see anything forming, especially since the name of the conference is Atlantic Coast Conference. They expanded teams from the West Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. The Big 12. Loads to unpack here. First, we'll start with West Virginia. They are thankfully no longer alone on an island, as Cincinnati has joined the conference. 2 bordering states and 2 schools that arguably already hate each other. Now that's debatable. They haven't played much. I mean, it's been a good bit, but between the 2 schools, they are around 300 miles away from one another. This matchup will certainly bring fun and fierce games to watch. I am very confident that these 2 schools will begin to hate each other in a few short years. Now Houston, I think this is pretty obvious, but most, if not all, Texas schools really don't like each other too much. With Houston joining in with 3 other Texas schools, who do you believe could create the best rivalry? I was leaning towards Baylor. Both campuses are fairly closer to each other than other schools in the state. I know Houston and Texas Tech kind of have a rivalry there, but this video is mainly about fresh new rivalries. Utah and BYU are already heated rivals, this time in the Big 12. They were both previously in the Mountain West Conference before splitting up. These 2 schools are bringing back a beloved college football matchup. UCF has also joined the Big 12 last year, but just like how West Virginia used to be, they are on an island by themselves. And with a year under their belt, I don't see a new rivalry taking place. Apparently there's a rivalry between them and Cincinnati. I don't know how legit that is. You guys let me know in the comments. I'm not really informed on that. In my personal opinion and what I've seen, I don't believe that's true. They seem to make up rivalries all the time, just like UCF and UConn. It seems UCF is down bad for a rival. And also, they are just so far from everyone else in their own conference, I don't see anything forming there. And finally, the Pac-12, or as many like to call it the Pac-2, Oregon State and Washington State, anytime they face each other, they will have the right to call themselves conference champions. Alright, so this is obviously a joke, but with college football realignment, I had to poke a little fun at this sad conference. I honestly feel bad for these 2 schools. As we know, the new Power 4 conferences have been created. They have been left behind. This is the 2024 college football 12-team playoff. We're new conferences. No more Nick Saban. A dead Pac-12. We are heading towards a new college football era. Whether you like it or not, this is where the sport is at the moment. I hope to see these changes make college football even more fun than it already is. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you like this type of content by liking, subscribing, or leaving your opinions down in the comments. Follow my Twitter for more college football content. My DMs are also open there. And like always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.